I am officially going to call to order this regular meeting of the Truckee-Donner Public Utility District. It is 5:59 on Wednesday, October 6th, 2021. Shauna, could we get a roll call, please?
Thank you. Director Aguirre?
Here.
Director Bender?
Here.
Thank you. Director Harris?
Here.
Vice President Laliotis?
Here.
President Finn?
Here.
Thank you.
And before we get going tonight, since this is our first meeting back in a long time here in person, I'd like to, for one thing, welcome Director Harris to her first live and in-person gathering, and also to remind everybody of just some of the ground rules, that our phones are off, our masks are on, except when we are speaking. I think it's okay if we have our masks down. I was going to run that by the rest of the board. Do you all feel that that is acceptable? Just a thumb, shrugs.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Muffled.
Yes.
Yeah.
I personally have an easier time when I can see people speaking. I don't know if it's too much rock and roll in my youth, but it's not as fantastic as it used to be. So I like to, but if people have concerns, I'm happy to go either way. Okay. Seeing.
I think the speaker.
How about we just do what we want to do?
Okay. Whatever people feel comfortable, please feel comfortable. And I think that's pretty much it for that. So, wow, we have the pledge. So as you are willing and able, please stand and join us in the pledge. Vice President Laliotis, would you like to lead us?
Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Brian, do we have any changes to the agenda this evening?
Good evening, President Finn. Yes, staff would like to remove action item number 15. The item involved a move or action to dispense with competitive bidding. Staff has determined some additional information that would allow us to procure this through a competitive bidding process. So we want to explore that and bring it back to the board at a different time.
Okay, thank you.
Which number? 15 is the airport storage tank.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Everybody good?
Yep.
Okay, it will come back in front of us at some point. Which brings us to public comment. This is time that is set aside for the public to address the board on any matter that is not on the agenda. Testimony related to any agendized item should be addressed at the time that item is being considered. I don't see any public present. Boy, this is weird to be back in person. Do we have any written submissions?
No, Madam President.
Thank you very much. Director update. Now is the time for directors to comment on any item within the purview of the district. Do we have any directors' comments? I'm just going to start from the far end. Director Laliotis?
Sure. No, I just want to thank staff for making this happen. It's good to be back. I mean, it's and have Kim here on the dais with us the first time. I'm sure you've been waiting for this for a while. But I just want to thank, there's been so much going on in the last couple months with fires and everything going on in this community. I just want to thank the staff here for the excellent customer service and the job they do. And thank the rest of the community, our firefighters, and first responders and everyone who's been on edge as we have for the last several months, not with just COVID, but with what's going on in our climate, and what's going on in our communities. Just a big thanks to everyone who's staying involved and working hard to keep us safe. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Laliotis. Director Harris.
Yes, thank you, Director Lalios. I agree with it. So over the past month, the PUD has been involved with many community events to promote the communications and preparedness for the potential of energy outages. Thank you to Brian and Annabelle and Stephen Poncelet at the PUD, Bob Womack, Jennifer Calloway, and Poncho Mackin, and I'm sure I'm missing several others that participated and helped us preparing for the time and effort put forth to go into the community and promote safety. We do really appreciate it. I saw them out at a couple of the grocery stores, so it was nice to see that. Also, I participated in a coffee talk at Wild Cherries with Mary Hetherington, with the airport board member. And I saw Brian and Krista also participated with a couple of those local officials in the coffee talks. It's a nice opportunity to have a casual community outreach opportunity at these events. Thank you to the crews for responding to the electric outages that happened, both the water and electric, as well as the customer service. Even though the outage was called off and then it happened, so I'm glad everybody was all lined up, ready to go, and it is appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Harris. Director Bender, do you have anything for us this week?
I just like, Tony, thanks for bringing all the thank yous up. Yeah, it's been rough for everyone, so really want to, again, thank staff for stepping it up and making it happen and keep this district running as everyone in this community deals with the fires and have dealt with the fires and COVID, et cetera. So really appreciate it. Thank you for staying strong and making it happen.
Thank you, Director Bender. Director Aguirre, do you have anything you'd like to share?
Sure, I'm just gonna thank everybody that we're back home again. Feels like see everybody's faces and the whites of their eyes. It seems like it is kind of normal. Only we're spread out a little bit more, which is okay. I kind of like this format pretty good. And kind of ditto what the rest of the board said. Thank you guys for been keeping this building up and going and everything else. It's just perfect. And so I'm just glad to be back to where we were. And thanks, Brian, for everything you've done there. And that's about it for me now.
Thank you, Director Aguirre. Which brings it to me. I'd just like to wish everybody a happy National and California Public Power Providers Week. And also, it's a real thing, and we are grateful that people recognize what we do. And also Water Professionals Week as well. Beyond that, I did attend the California Municipal Utility Association's Road to 100% Renewables conference that was a couple of weeks ago, which was very inspiring and a little bit depressing. But I hope to be able to share some of the things that I learned perhaps later on tonight with our budget discussions or a future sustainability presentation that I'm looking forward to from our new sustainability coordinator, Mr. Keats. Also, I have been attending our greenhouse gas, we're now calling ourselves an alliance, reduction committee that you all approved via MOU a few meetings back. I wanted to give you just a quick update. We have settled on a name, which is the Carbon Zero Truckee Tahoe. So seize it. I don't, something along those lines, but CZTT. We have got a meeting schedule set up. We have a series of workshops which are designed to align our districts with what the legislature is demanding of all of us and what funding opportunities might exist. We're currently collecting all of the data from the various participating entities to see where our greenhouse gas inventories stand. So we're doing some benchmarking there. We have brainstormed a list of potential projects, and we're hoping to sort of have a parallel project path, pick a project that the airport district, the town of Truckee, and the PUD can collaborate on while we're continuing to create the framework for what this entity is really going to look like, how we're hoping to, our governing structure and how we're going to get others to join. So that's where we're at now. And we've got meetings pretty much every 2 weeks, right before our PUD meetings, the Monday before the PUD meet. So that's moving along. So that is my update for this evening. Thank you. Which brings us to the general manager's update.
Yeah, thank you. Great job on covering a lot of topics there. You stole a lot of my punch list items, so great work. First, I wanted to kind of reiterate, sorry, the microphone's too close. Reiterate the Water Professionals Week and the Public Power Week. It's, I kind of want to package it and, kind of give kudos and recognition for our public agencies here in the basin. It was really exciting to attend the chamber dinner at the end of September, and there was a really good award that they offered on resiliency during the COVID. And a lot of the recognition was on some of the local small and medium-sized businesses, but this is an opportunity also for public agencies across the Truckee-Tahoe Basin, the resiliency in all these tough times we've had over the last 2 years, economically, COVID-wise, just planning through all of this and keeping the lights on, the water in the pipes, the sewer working, the public works, out there getting the things they need to get done. So kudos, congratulations, and thank you to all those public service agencies out there. On the public power front, staff was able to attend last week the NCPA annual conference. A lot of great information there. In particular, some topics that were touched were some innovative solutions or emerging technologies with solar and hydrogen generation. So kind of that dual benefit there with solar energy plants, the off-peak production being utilized for clean hydrogen gas generation. So something for us to look to, kind of always be cognizant of as we have our strategic initiative of clean power and local generation and power resiliency. So a lot of great information there that we can continue to keep our finger on the pulse of. We had some presentations from CalISO. One of the emerging topics is regional transmission, and we staff are going to keep our finger on the pulse of how that will affect our local supply and rates. We'll have some rates discussions during the budget process. So it's important that we keep our eyes focused on our local needs, but also what's out there on the horizon. The L&R committee had some great discussion, and Stephen Ponce, our Strategic Affairs Director, had some follow-up interaction earlier today with CARB on the potential, regulatory burden of mandated electric vehicle fleet and how that will impact a utility of, the PUD size, our geographic location, our emergency response requirements, and so there's a lot to consider there. The district has had, kind of that small utility with a big voice on this, and so we'll keep the board updated on where we're going with that in the future, but it's something that affects us budget-wise, operationally, and our long-term planning. And then it was also, as all these conferences are, CMUA, UAMPS, NCPA, great opportunities for productive networking and building relationships with sister utility agencies, public agencies, public power across the Northern California and across the state. Excited to announce that last week the first standing committee was launched for the strategic initiative of community broadband. We had a attendance of 9 really dynamic participants. They kind of stretch across different professional backgrounds, regional backgrounds, expertise, interests, and so it was really exciting, and we're really excited about what the future holds with that committee. The intention here is moving forward in the future months. The staff will present a committee update to the board. The first one will be obviously the broadband. That's the first meeting we've held. But as we progress through the strategic initiatives over the next couple of years, we'll include updates from each of those committees, the overhead, the undergrounding of overhead power, the local clean generation, each of those committees. So Look for in November, likely to have a staff report with a committee update on the broadband. This first meeting last week was really just kind of setting the goals and the objectives over the next several months. I'm happy to report out that the committee was very happy with the goals and strategies were set by the GM task force early on. So a lot of work was already accomplished early on in this process, and they're hitting the ground with their feet running, so to speak. Couple of updates coming out of the State Water Resources Control Board and just general California legislative action. You may have been aware already now that the governor has extended the executive order, at least the provisions that included moratorium on water utility disconnects for non-payment. That was set to expire on September 30th. It has now been extended to the end of the year. The kind of the sense on the power side that something similar would follow, something similar in nature would follow. How it impacts the district, we have kind of seen a little bit of a plateau in our cumulative past due or delinquent billings. We're at about $400,000 in total past due at the moment. What is interesting is the 90-day plus past dues have really leveled off. We're not getting any more. We're not reducing them any significantly in number, but we're at $216,000 in 90-day past due delinquents. And so staff is working with a couple of the JPAs and our governmental advocates on applications for some of that arrearage benefit relief. And so we'll report that out. We're kind of really in that application process and not much new to report out other than it's moving forward and, kind of at the expected pace. And I think that's what I have for you this evening in terms of GM updates.
Right on, thank you very much. Excellent, I'm excited about that working group for broadband, it's exciting. That brings us to the consent calendar today. Do we have any public comments on the consent calendar? I think I'm still halfway in Zoom land, because I can see there's nobody at the podium. Do we have any written comment? Do we accept written comment now that we're back in person? Okay.
Yes,
Do we
Madam.
have any written comments on the consent calendar?
Do not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any board, anybody to pull anything or discuss something on the consent calendar? Yes, Director Harris.
I wanted to pull the item on the goals, on the district goals.
Okay, that's item number 11. Other than that, perhaps we can pass the remaining items on the consent calendar and discuss item 11. Can I entertain that motion? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Could we get a roll call vote, please, Shauna?
Thank you, Director Aguirre.
Yes.
Director Bender.
Yes.
Director Harris.
Yes.
Vice President Oliotis.
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes. So let's talk about item number 11.
Sorry, I need to turn the mic on. President Finn, staff doesn't have a formal presentation for this. It was on the consent calendar. There is a staff report that each of the boards should have, item number 11 on this item that we can use as reference. There was an attachment with a resolution, and I believe the board has been provided, as well as the public, if they're in attendance, a copy of District Code Title I, the proposed edits. Just as a little bit of background to start the discussion, this item is presented to the board this evening to ensure that district code goals are in alignment with the adopted strategic plan goals set by the board back in May of this year. And really what the timing is that we're about to embark on some final phases of the annual budget process, or biannual budget process for fiscal year 22 and 23. And part of that budget process includes the links to our strategic plans for budget. And staff felt it was important at this time, as we begin to present it to the board for consideration and adoption of that budget, that the updated goals for the district were codified in district code, so we have some alignment and for expectations, performance metrics, and reporting out in the future.
Thank you, Brian. Director Harris, maybe you could share with us what your concerns are.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing was that when looking over the item, there was the mission statement, which that's pretty straightforward. You know, a couple of words were changed to direct it more towards what was kind of happening with the strategic plan. But then I saw that there are 2 pages of goals that are going to be wiped clean. And so that caused me to pause, and looking this over, there are objectives, in the old document, there are objectives, and built on those objectives are the goals for the district. So with that, I was confused on what was happening with it. So the district code that's going to be changes, that's why I asked for a red line version to occur, so we could see how much was going to be taken away. In a lot of the staff reports, there is reference to these goals and objectives, which I think are important and kind of keep the staff on task for ensuring that the goals of the district are being met. So the goals that are presented to us were a set of actually 8 strategic levers that were presented at the September meeting, September 16th of 2020, so over a year ago. And it was discussed quite a bit during the strategic planning processes, but nothing changed. I don't know if they were supposed to be enhanced. I know I made a couple of comments about just one of them, take the best of the private sector thinking to add value to our communities, which I think it's important to consider private sector, but I also think it's important to address that we are still a public sector entity. So, but the comments were taken and then nothing really was changed with it. So just wondering what the next step is with these goals. Are there going to be goals that are the SMART goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, timely, that kind of will help replace some of the goals that we're losing? That's kind of where I was just curious. And thank you very much, Shauna, for putting this all together, because it is, changing district code in my mind is a very big deal, so.
Am I on now? Yes. Well, I think that, we set those goals and as a, part of our strategic planning process, and the board did approve them. We did discuss, we acknowledged your concerns about the private and taking the best of private sector and applying it to our public district here. We acknowledged that you had those concerns, but we didn't think that they were enough to change that goal. I thought that was clear through that process and the discussions that we have had at the board. We did adopt these goals. They are officially our goals. So now we are simply updating our code with the goals that we have most recently agreed upon. And as far as specific actions embedded underneath each of those goals, like we had in the code, I am imagining that those are going to be repopulated over time as we come up with specific programs that fall under that. But for the moment, these are our goals. This is what the board adopted, and I think we have to reflect those. We have to put them in the code, otherwise we're being disingenuous. I feel like that's the transparency part. We went through this process, we adopted these goals, we have to put them in our code, and that's kind of where we're at this moment.
No, I don't, and I really don't think that this structure that was redlined out is actually appropriate for district code. District code should be a little more broad. These more defined tasks within each goal really, in my opinion, don't belong in district code. Those are more of a planning tool. Those are more of, what it is that the goal is, and then what staff is doing. That's what happens below the goal is really a planning tool, and should be in a planning document, not necessarily district code. So I support the consolidation of the goals to simplify it, but I don't think we're losing the ability or the more defined, tasks within the goals. I think that comes in either a plan or in a planning document or as part of the strategic plan. But yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree that there was a lot of stuff here, and I guess my point is it probably doesn't need to all be in here, in code, in the district code. So I think this was a little too much, in my opinion. So.
Thank you, Director Harris and Director Laliotis. Director Bender or Director Aguirre, do you have any comments or thoughts?
No, I think that these came up with the strategic plan and our mission statement. I think that we hit it pretty good the first time here. And we can always work on this as we go naturally. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Aguirre.
Yeah, I think it's good to hear everyone's thoughts on this, and I would be in support of the consolidation as presented, so.
Okay, well, thank you all for the discussion. I feel confident that we could perhaps at this point make a motion to approve item number 11 of the consent calendar. Do you have anything to add, Brian?
Just board or council guidance on the recommendation. Would it be appropriate to read the resolution or just accept board approval of the resolution?
Since you're asking, I think it'd be appropriate to entertain a motion to adopt resolution number 2021-17. And that would capture the intended action, recommended action.
Okay, I will do exactly that. I will entertain a motion I will make a motion to adopt Resolution 2021-17, updating the District Code Title I for the mission statement and goals of the district.
Second.
Thank you, Director Aguirre. Could I get a roll call vote, Jana, please?
Thank you. Director Aguirre?
Yes.
Director Bender?
Yes.
Director Harris?
Yes.
Vice President Laliotis?
Yes.
President Finn?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so that puts to bed the consent calendar and brings us to our action items. Yay. I guess I can move this in front of me so I can see it. So our first item is number 14, consideration to dispense with competitive bidding and authorize the general manager to negotiate the procurement of the Martis Valley Well transfer switch and soft start assembly. Do we have any public comment on action item number 14? I don't see any, and if we don't have any written,
No, Madam President.
thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to open that up to our presentation.
So President Finn, I will be putting my water utility director hat on and doing this presentation this evening. First wanted to start off, this is our first action item for the evening. For those watching in our streaming video and for the board's information, as you may notice, there's been presented to everyone here printed copies of the presentation. Unfortunately, we had a technical failure earlier this morning where the bulb in the projector has failed. It is, our plan is the next board meeting to have new technology in place, the digital widescreen videos. So in the future, it'll be much more technology proof, I'll say. We attempted to replace the bulb, but it was a $600 bulb that required weeks of delivery with all the current supply chain issues. So thank you for your patience in the printed out version of the PowerPoint presentations for the remainder of the evening. So this is this is item number 14. Consideration to dispense with competitive bidding and authorize the general manager to negotiate procurement of the Martis Valley Well transfer switch and soft start assembly. A little bit of background information. Over the last decade or so, the district has put in place purchased, installed, and have been operating successfully 17 or more backup emergency generators. These are diesel generators positioned at key pumping facilities across our distribution system. They've been very successful in establishing resiliency of service here, predominantly in our winter-based storms, the outages that we experience due to the extreme weather we have here in the winter. While the power's out, we still need to provide water service here to our community, and it's also utilized during some of the planned and unplanned outages throughout the seasons. As you can imagine, recently with the development of the new NV Energy PSOM protocol, there's a new paradigm we have to kind of consider here when it comes to backup power supply for our water infrastructure. And this is really turning our focus on the summer demand. So in the past, winter pumping is moving the water up the different hills in our community to make sure that we can provide water to the upper reaches there. Now with the summer outages, we have to be concerned with the actual supply for the wells in our basin. And so the district's 10-year capital improvement plan has some provisions in that. We've identified some key wells that would be most beneficial to equip with backup generators. And our current priority right now is Mars Valley Well, based on two reasons. One, its productivity, the water it produces, and the accessibility. It's over there off Georgia Drive. It's a flat area that's wide open. It's not in a residential community, so we don't have to worry too much about noise attenuation. And it's really accessible for replacement fuel. It's an easy road. You've all been out there towards the regional park, the sports park out there in Tykert. So in March of this year, the district was awarded grant funds. Very exciting that it was one of at least the only grant opportunity or application we submitted on the water side in my tenure here the last 8 years. So the $300,000 grant fund award was very exciting for us. It was provided by California Office of Emergency Services, specifically for water facilities that needed backup power generation. The funds are applicable to new generators and any equipment or materials associated with the installation. And the qualifying expenditures must be completed by no later than March of next year. There's a typo in the staff report. It is March of 2022. Those funds must be exhausted. And anything that's left has to be returned to the fund administrators. Earlier this year in July, the district awarded, through our Sourcewell JPA procurement process, the Mars Valley Well generator. In August, the district advertised a request for bids for the procurement of the soft start and the transfer switch. So when we put a new generator at the facility, it also requires an automatic transfer switch that allows that generator to automatically engage without staff having to go out into the field and manually connect things. And then the soft start really helps these generators perform more effectively because it ramps up the energy demand instead of just slamming in there and tripping some breakers somewhere. And so we went out to bid in August. There's a bid opening held on August 20th of this year, at which time only one bid was received. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this, but it's kind of a new emerging trend here in terms of the challenges that utilities like ourselves and vendors are having in supply chain procurement, particularly heavy electrical equipment. So we only had one bid that the board authorized on September 1st for staff to execute a contract with Graybar Electric in the amount of not to exceed just under $39,000. Shortly after the authorization by the board, staff engaged with some contract discussions with Graybar, at which point Graybar rescinded their bid because they felt they could not meet the delivery times standards or the provisions in the contract. And this was, like I said, in large part due to the heavy strain on supply chain coming out of the COVID pandemic and all the things we've heard on the news, factories being shut down for periods of time, shipping being delayed because of the backlog of orders. And so it's really caused a problem here. Staff tried to negotiate those terms to really balance two things. One, accommodate the challenges in procurement, but also ensure that we could get this equipment within the timeline of the grant funding. So staff is recommending this evening, based on a couple of considerations. One, we went out to the public procurement process. We had a competitive bid that we held in the public arena. Only one contractor or vendor provided a bid. That contractor subsequently rescinded their bid. And so staff is presenting to the board that it would very unlikely for the staff to successfully execute another competitive bid, just simply because we wouldn't get any different results. And so what we're looking for is board authorization for dispense of competitive bidding for the second round, and authorize the general manager and staff to go out into kind of the vendor world here on these types of equipment and see if we can negotiate a procurement term that meets everyone's needs, bring that back to the board for final approval, and hopefully get these equipment and materials in our hands, or at least close to it by the March deadline. The other option that's kind of in our back pocket, if negotiations aren't successful, is to see if we can reach out with Cal OES. And if this is, a common trend throughout the state, perhaps we can get another extension. They've already extended it 1 6-month period, I believe. It was initially a November deadline, now it's March. So that's the mindset, or the kind of the philosophy behind the request. From a fiscal impact, this procurement was not included. So the larger procurement of the generator and transfer switch was not included in this year's fiscal year 21 budget. But the district, as I mentioned, did receive Cal OES funds in the amount of $300,000. These equipment pieces will be procured with these funds. There would be a net zero impact on the district's budget. And staff recommendation is the board make a finding to dispense with competitive bidding and authorize the general manager to negotiate with vendors for the procurement of Mars Valley automatic transfer switch and soft start assembly. And I can answer any other questions you might have.
Brian,
Perfect.
what's this R&K contractor? Where they stand right now? We don't have a contractor right now.
Correct. This is a vendor. So we're attempting to find a vendor that we can procure some heavy electrical equipment that allows us to utilize the generator at Mars Valley Well. And so we attempted to negotiate a contract with the board-approved vendor, but they have since withdrawn their interest due to the inability to deliver the materials in any kind of, presentable time.
Then we're still working with R&K.
No, this is a different procurement. This was with Graybar for the switchgear assembly. This is not a construction contract, it's a procurement for the actual switchgear.
The Graybar backed out, right?
Correct.
So now we're still looking for a vendor, did you say?
Correct. This evening, I'm seeking board authorization to go out and negotiate as opposed to reissue or re-advertise a new public bidding procurement process.
Okay.
I think part of the confusion is that in the staff report, it says attachments, attachment 1 R&K contractor contract, but there wasn't anything attached. So that may be part of the confusion.
That makes sense. It is likely that the incorrect version of the staff report was attached to the board's packet. So R&K's contract is not a part of this agenda item or part of the recommendation from staff. Initially, we were receiving some of the same challenges for the construction component of this project. We've sensed, similar to the airport tank in the earlier action item that we withdrew, we found with the construction of the concrete pad other means for going out to competitive bid. And so this item this evening is specifically for the Graybar procurement, for the transfer switch and soft start.
Thanks for the clarification.
Do we have any other board questions or comments at this moment?
No, I appreciate the clarification of the change in the Cal OES kind of deadline. Now that we're hitting winter, would we be able to get an extension just based on not being able to dig because it's too cold, or it's just not the digging season?
Yeah, great question. The original thought process is that we could get all of the equipment and materials in place hopefully, in the fall. Now it's looking like, as you alluded to, that these materials, if we're successful, would be delivered in late winter. And so the district's goal is to organize these procurements, get the materials on hand, and then stage for a spring installation with internal staff or perhaps additional contractors if we had to come back to the board for approval. Considering the size of the grant and the benefit to the district, the labor cost for some of the installation would probably be minor compared to what we could benefit from the grant fund. So our goal would be to stage the equipment, indoors somewhere, and then do the actual construction later in that spring. And we're all knocking on wood for a good winter, so I hope we're doing it in June.
Well, number one, as long as we get into this project, then we can still shoot for March 31st, but once we start and we get that far, get the materials and everything, we can push that still and still get our grant once everything is here and ready.
The grant will pay for all of the materials we purchase. And so as much of that $300,000 that we can, direct towards procurement before the March deadline is that much savings to this community in terms of putting in place a critical generator.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, once we do have those materials and everything here, it's a go. I mean, the deadline is, we're still within the deadline, once we have the project half done, right?
Correct.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we just need to spend the money, correct? We don't need to finish the project. We just need to spend the money.
Correct. That is correct. So there is a reporting mechanism where we have to actually report back and demonstrate the project was completed successfully and the equipment was utilized. But the deadline is actually for the money being spent.
Okay, those are deadlines I like. Let's
And,
spend some money.
yeah.
Very good. Any other director questions or comments?
How about a motion to move staff's recommendation?
Excellent. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Thank you. Shauna, could we get a roll call vote, please?
Absolutely. Director Aguirre?
Yes.
Director Bender?
Yes.
Director Harris?
Yes.
Vice President Laliotis?
Yes?
President Finn?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. We are just moving right along here. We have dropped action item 15, moving to number 16, consideration of a contract to design the Pioneer Trail Pump Station. Do we have any public comment on this item? I see none in the room.
No, Madam President.
Thank you. In which case, I think we are ready for the presentation of item number 16.
Good evening, President Finn. Can you all hear me? Okay. Yes, this is action item number 16, consideration of awarding a contract to design the Pioneer Trail Pump Station. We'll go through a little bit of background on this project. This was in concept previously presented back to the board, but we'll kind of go through a review here. It's been a while. So the Tahoe Donner subdivision consists of about 5,600 single-family residential parcels. There's another 400 multifamily residential units up there. In addition, they have a small amount of multi-use commercial, golf course, the downhill ski area, cross-country ski area, and some other facilities up there. And the subdivision represents about 44% of the district's total water demand at this time. Currently, the entire subdivision is supplied potable water through a single 14-inch welded steel pipeline with 2 storage tanks and booster pumps facilities. That pipe runs up Northwoods Boulevard. It was installed in the early 1970s, and those facilities are reaching the end of their useful life. And the district has identified the need to construct a second water pipeline into the Tahoe Donner subdivision. This pipeline was included in the current water system master plan. And we recently updated our water demand projections for the Tahoe Donner area. And so we believe the master plan showed that pipeline as a 20-inch diameter pipeline. And we do believe that we can downsize that to 16-inch based upon what we're seeing up there in terms of build-out water demand projections. A planned route for this pipeline has been identified. The east end of the pipeline will connect into an existing pipeline near the intersection of Pioneer Trail and Comstock Drive in proximity to the concrete batch plant here in town. The west end of the pipeline would connect to an existing 16-inch pipeline we installed a number of years ago, and that's located at the intersection of Northwoods Boulevard and Lamplighter Way. The general route of the pipeline is shown on the map on the next slide. This is a little conceptual in nature, but it generally shows the route that we're talking about. And we're currently anticipating that this pipeline alignment will be a joint project involving the PUD Water, PUD Electric Department, and Southwest Gas. The gas company has a similar problem to the water department in that they have a single piece of pipe serving the entire subdivision, so they are also looking for a second feed for reliability and redundancy purposes. Now, we do have a need for a pump station to move the water from the vicinity of the concrete plant up into Tahoe Donner, and we've currently identified a couple of locations that will be evaluated as part of the design process. Both of those locations are on property currently owned by the district in close proximity to the concrete batch plant. In November of last year, a contract was awarded to Waterworks engineers to assist with the design of the pipeline. The scope of that contract involved design of the pipeline and conduit crossing across Trout Creek, and it also involved performing a hydraulic transient analysis of the overall pipeline pump station system. In August of this year, the district issued an RFP for proposals to design the new pump station. We received 3 proposals. The firms were Eichley out of Concord, California, Sowers Engineering out of Grass Valley, and Waterworks Engineers out of Roseville. A staff committee was selected to evaluate the proposals on the criteria listed here. Briefly, we have the proposed scope of work and project methodology, experience of the firm and the project team with similar pump station design projects, the firm's procedures for quality assurance, quality control, references, and cost. So after a review of the technical proposals, Waterworks was deemed to be the best technical proposal, with Sowers Engineering ranked second and Eichley third. In terms of the cost proposals, Sowers Engineering was the most favorable cost proposal, followed by Waterworks, and then Eichley in third again. So in terms of an overall aggregate ranking, we believe that the Sowers Engineering proposal would be most advantageous to the district, with Waterworks in second place and Eichley in third. So the recommendation is that the contract be awarded to Sowers Engineering. In terms of the schedule, we're currently looking at advertising for bids to construct the pump station in March or April of this year, with construction to begin in May. Now, as the general manager alluded to, we are having some significant issues associated with procurement of critical equipment, pumps, switchgear, a generator for this new pump station facility. And so we're anticipating that we're going to have to pre-purchase those pieces of equipment this winter. We're hoping to actually go out to bid in November and have those bids awarded before Christmas. hopefully with the idea of having that equipment available on hand in that May to June timeframe. So we do expect to bring those bids back over the winter. In terms of fiscal impact, the price proposal from Sowers Engineering was just under $158,000. We are recommending a 10% change order allowance be created, so a total authorization of $173,350. And the funding source for this project would be the Water Department Capital Reserve Fund. And so the recommendation before you is to authorize the general manager to execute a professional services contract with Sowers Engineering to design the Pioneer Trail Pump Station in an amount of $157,590, plus a 10% change order allowance for a total authorization not to exceed $173,350, and to approve the transfer of up to $173,350 from the Water Capital Reserve Fund to the Water General Fund. At this point, I'm available for any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Directors, do we have any questions for Neil this evening?
No.
Questions?
Neil, where would the pump go? What's the location of the pump?
The pump station?
Yeah.
Okay, so the district owns property basically immediately to the west of where the concrete batch plant is located, near Pioneer Trail and Comstock Drive. And we've identified two potential locations on the district. Task of the scope of work is to do some conceptual level, preliminary design level layouts for these two particular sites.
Where's that, where's the trail at? The name of this trail?
So Pioneer Trail that's the street. So if you know where the new rec center in town is,
Yes.
and then Coachland, and if you make the turn there at the traffic roundabout and you head towards the concrete batch plant, that is Pioneer Trail. That's the name of that road.
Okay,
By
thank
Stone's
you.
Tires.
Yes, if you're heading towards Stone's Tires and the Auto Doctor,
Okay.
that roadway is Pioneer
Oh, that
Trail.
batch plant there, okay. I'm with it now. And the Pioneer Trail will come towards Tahoe Donner?
Okay, so, right now, Pioneer Trail ends at Comstock Drive at the concrete batch plant. Okay. Somewhat related, somewhat unrelated, the town of Truckee has within their general plan an intent to extend Pioneer Trail from that location all the way to the west to Northwoods Boulevard.
Oh, okay, thank you there.
Right. The town has a study underway regarding that project. We are working with the town and trying to coordinate our efforts, but the timelines are different. And we have the need to do this project irregardless of whether the town moves forward with the roadway project or not.
It would follow the same path then?
The same general alignment, there are definitely some differences. The town is also doing some evaluations regarding the potential roadway, but their time frame, the last we spoke with them, their time frame is construction potentially 5 to 10 years out, and there's some discussion within the community as to whether the roadway is even needed or not. So they're on a much different project schedule than we are. We are essentially at the point where the existing facilities in Northwoods Boulevard are in marginal condition, And if we were to have a significant failure of either the pipeline or one of the pump stations or one of the storage tanks, we would have a major difficulty in serving, 40% of our customer base.
Okay, thank you.
I'm glad to see this project getting underway. It's exciting. Yeah. Do we have any other comments from directors? Anybody want to make a motion?
Looks like a great project. Thank you, Neil.
Yes, as I said, this has been in the master plan for quite a while, and we're finally able to move forward with it.
This is, yeah, it is. It's exciting. Any motion?
I move staff's recommendation.
Thank you. Thank you. Can we get a roll call vote, please, Shauna?
Thank you. Director Aguirre?
Yes,
Director Bender?
Yes.
Director Harris?
Yes.
Vice President Loliotis?
Yes.
President Finn?
Yes.
Thank you.
Very good. Very exciting. Which brings us to item number 17, the marquee item of the night, Budget 2022 and 2023, Workshop Number 2, discussion of our goals, objectives, and key assumptions, and to schedule the public meeting on November 3rd, 2021, for our budget for the next 2 years. Mike Salmon, take it away for us.
All right. Slide this off, that's all right. Good evening, President Finn and members of the board. Great to have you here in person
and Michael,
for my first budget cycle. Let's kick it off. As exciting as a pump station is that Neil went over, budget's even more exciting. I assure you. So this is a workshop, and so my preference would be to be this to be fairly interactive. So I will be plugging along at a fairly fast pace in the interest of time. There's a lot of material to cover, but please do pause me at any time if there's a clarifying question or a further question on any matter as I go through this. These pages the presentation is numbered because of the length of the document, so if I do jump around, I'll be referencing page numbers to help with navigation, since we're in the old school mode tonight. Today's agenda, as we had scheduled, I'm going to go over some introductory matters and what we've covered in the past. We're going to talk purchase power, Joe's big spending ticket item, current draft of the budget at a summary level. Then I'm going to dive into components of that, which are operating expenses, personnel changes, capital expenditures, and debt. And we're going to talk reserves, which in some might view that as being what we should talk about first. And we're going to talk the financial master plan. Page 3. Balanced budget, there's a color wheel on the right, and there's a lot of items on there, and I could have added quite a few more. It's just a visual representation that there's a lot of balancing going on for a budget. All of you have been on the board or very familiar with the district's operations, and so you know there's a lot of moving parts and pieces that need to come together in a balanced budget. So it's a bit of a juggling act, and that part's exciting for me.
You're in the county.
Yeah. So page 4, tonight is October 6th, workshop 2. We had a first workshop that discussed goals, objectives, and key assumptions. I'll briefly cover some of that. And then, as I mentioned, we have a specific agenda tonight. Then we have another workshop on October 20th. I believe that's 2 weeks, is that right? 2 weeks from now. And so there'll be some movement between tonight and the 20th, some refinement, and then we go to a public hearing on November 3rd is the plan. Moving on, alignment with the mission and values of the district, the values of safety, communication, integrity, accountability, timeliness, and work-life balance certainly need to be part of our entire effort, as well as the mission of the district. We also need to ensure alignment with our 5 goals that are on page 6. Manage financial stability, environmental stewardship, transparent in what we do. Private sector thinking needs to be considered, although we certainly need to remind ourselves we're a special district. And developing an inclusive culture, organizational integration and success. We also need to not forget our core initiatives, undergrounding, broadband, clean renewables, and local clean power generation. There are specific sub-goals that are identified in the strategic plan that if you look in the fine print of that toward the back of the document, there's quite a few items listed, and those need to be incorporated as appropriate in 2022 and 2023. We've tried to do that. And then lastly, ensuring that there's resources to address the strategic plan initiatives. So that's kind of an introductory. We also covered that the first workshop. We also covered key assumptions, kind of a primer for tonight's presentation at the last board meeting, which was quite a while ago now, that last first workshop. But we've been busy since then with getting ready for this meeting. So the next agenda topic was purchase power. I'm on page 10. Purchase power is a very significant component of the cost structure, cost elements of the electric utility operation. It's about 53% of our electric utilities expenses, which is a very similar amount to Roseville when I was talking to Roseville about reserves, which I'll get into later, but it's amazing how close it was as a percent of their operating expenses. Let's see. Obviously, an important number not to miss in the budget, and our recent demand is growing. On the left, you'll see the last 4 years of actuals on a calendar year basis, and then on the right is the last 12 months ending August 2021 megawatt hours of almost 172,000 megawatt hours versus 2020 was 166,000 megawatt hours. So that demand is increasing. There's a lot of opinions about what's driving that. My specific opinions are that it is COVID impact to this region. There's the second homes are being occupied more, and primary homes, people are in their homes more. So the combination of those two has driven that demand. The usage of second homes is a combination of the owner of the home as well as short-term renters and et cetera, et cetera. But I don't know if anyone in the room has the exact answer and knows it, speak up. I should quote some of these key figures for recording purposes, or, it all is all in my staff report, so I don't know that I need to.
The staff report and the PowerPoint will be available for the public review.
Okay, thank you, Shauna. So, okay. So I'm on page 10 of the PowerPoint presentation.
Is that 10 or 11?
I'm on page 10 and I'm headed to 11.
No, it says page 10 of 11. We're on a different schedule
Yep.
here. Okay, I'm with the program now.
Okay.
Thanks, Jeff.
It was an 11-page staff report. Sorry about that, not including the appendix. So I apologize for the length of this. It is a lot of information, and that needs to be digested. And certainly, again, pause me if I'm going too fast on a particular item or need clarification.
Purchase power, we got it now.
All right. So on page 11, I quantify that megawatt hours assumption into the budget for 2022. So I took the last 12 months megawatt hours and then added 5% for growth. not 1%, which is in the financial master plan. We'll get to that in the end. I have 1% because 1% growth in customers has been happening a little. I believe the average last 5 years is about 1.2% growth in customers, but I used 5%, 0.5% in the out years just for conservatism purposes. I'm sorry, 1% in the future years, but for 2022 and 2023, for conservative reasons, I use 0.5, particularly because of the large uptick of recent. There's been such a high increase in megawatt hour usage. And then I looked at the cost side. There's a bit of expectation of a price increase in cost, and then I do have a contingency in that figure. So on the left, on bottom left of page 11, are the components of the last 12 months costs rolling forward to a budget calculation for 2022. 3% in inflation cost increase on purchase power, 0.5 for customer growth demand, and 2.5% in cost for contingency. I feel like it would be important to have a small contingency in this figure. Otherwise, you might come up short. So that's a last 12 months roll forward to the budget figure of a cost of purchase power of $13.659 million. That equates to a cost per megawatt hour of $79.11. The last 12 months cost is $75.01. So it is an uptick. The budget figure on a cost per megawatt hour is $77.50 on the far left column. So it's a $13,659,000 is a large figure. The basis for that calculation is presented on this page and the prior page. So for consideration, compared, lastly on this page, the $13,659,000 versus the budget figure on the far left, the current year, $13,065. That's a $594,000 increase. 4.5%. And on the far right, bottom right, I quantify what that change, that increase, the components of that increase. So the 2.4 of that increase, 321,000, is the megawatt hour increase. So because you're purchasing more wholesale power to provide to your customers that are demanding it, you spend more in purchase power, right? And then 273,000 or 2.1% is my cost increase assumption from the 77.50 per megawatt hour to the 79.11 per megawatt hour. So those are the two pieces on a budget to budget basis.
Boy, am I glad you're keeping track of the,
That one I watch. I'm anxiously anticipate the monthly email from UAMPS for sure, and Joe and I not commiserate. We discuss it, the pros and cons of that bill every month. So yeah, it's been interesting. And of course, we have a tremendous amount of data that we're tracking. It's not just UAMPS. There's NV Energy, Stampede, WAPA-related stuff, and a few other odds and ends that components of that. But UAMPS is the largest piece. So if no further questions on purchase power. All right. I'm moving on to page 12 of the PowerPoint presentation. And this is fairly, in the staff report, it's a little more broken down between sources and uses, but this is a summary of it. On page 12 is electric, and on page 13 is water. And this is fairly similar to previous budget cycle presentations of a summary of the budget for the district. In the staff report, it does have kind of some of the cost breakdown on expenses between the various departments. I did not present that on this summary document here to fit on the page. I will be covering the vast majority of these line items that are listed here further in the document, so I'm not going to go over all of them now. But what I would want to point out is for electric, I'm on page 12 again. So for electric, revenues are 14.3% more greater than the current year's budget. That's a lot. And it's a combination of a rate increase and demand increase and customer growth. So those are the three components. And then on expenses, we have a large growth as well, 11%. That's purchase power that I just discussed, as well as other components. That'll be the first thing I dive into, is that 11% increase in expenses. On the other items, very large uptick in capital expenditures. There's new debt being proposed. There is a use of capital reserve funds. So what's happened over the last 12 to 18 months is we have not done as many capital projects as perhaps anticipated or budgeted, particularly on the electric side, because of the pandemic and other items. And so you've built up reserve funds that are anticipated and were intended for use for capital expenditures, and now you're using those funds to draw down. And we'll get into that when we get into the capital projects line items. And then we're going to use slightly less AB 32 reserve funds. We cannot use 1.4 like we did last year because the auction sales are coming in less than they have been in previous periods. So we're going to taper off of that reserve fund over time down to about $350,000 on the out years. So that's electric. Page 13 is a summary of the water utility budget, current draft. You'll see a large uptick in revenues and a large uptick in expenses. Part of the revenue increase is demand and usage, and then the other part is a rate increase. And then remember, the rate increase was greater for 2021 than budgeted, so you have that interplay going on, the ripple effect on budget 22 figures. A large capital expenditures, which I'll get into later in the presentation. Bond funds, so there is bond proposal in this draft, taking down debt, utilizing debt, sorry, and those are the key things there. All right. Moving to page 14. On page 11, and the summary of so next agenda item, I'm going to be talking about operating expenses. And on page 11, I talked about electric's operating expenses being up 11% to budget 2021. So this page 14 identifies, kind of groups those variances, and then I'm going to dive into the detail of each of these items. Okay. Other than the first one, which was $594,000, which I already covered, purchase power. So B2B increase of $594,000 for purchase power is 2.5% of that 11% increase. Okay, these percentages, the first one being purchase power at 2.5, that column adds up to the 11%. So I'm just this just summarizes the pieces of that puzzle. And then I'll go into some more detail next. The next item is $500,000 or 2.1% in wildfire defensible space increase. The board is well aware of that line item being in variance to budget for the last 2 years. We've been spending $500,000 more, so now we're kind of catching up with budget to get budget in alignment with what we've been doing. The next item is rate of pay increases and its impact on overhead, and that's 1.4%. 1.3% of the increase is strategic plan initiatives. And then part 2 is strategic and organizational structure changes of 1.8%. And then other changes of 1.9%. A lot of small stuff that added up. And again, this is the first kind of roll-up of budget, second workshop in 2 weeks. We'll be refining all of these components as I have time to come up from the bowels of details of budget and kind of look at this at not a 30,000-foot level, but a 5,000-foot level and go through ensuring that allocations are proper, the allocated overheads are calculating properly. I mean, I've done that, but now I need to get it, another layer of review. And refinement. So page 14 summarizes the variance changes of 11%. And then the next page, I'm going to start talking about those variances in a little bit more detail. Page 15. I already talked about it, 500,000 in wildfire defensible space, because that 1 million was, the $1.30 million in budget 21. Board approved was closer to $1.5 million, and so we're moving budget 22 to the $1.5 million figure. So that's your variance.
This same as our vegetation management program, this is just a new title program?
Yes. Okay. In addition, it's happening Joe might go into detail, but it's in large part the vegetation management program. Okay.
Yes, that was, we brought to the board's order. Sorry, so you can hear me. We brought this item before the board, I believe it was sometime in the year in 2020, that we were making changes in the California code and regulations that we needed to have an increase in that amount, from 1 million to 1.5 million at 500,000 that is minus talking about. So we worked through that for 2020, and then we worked through it again for this year.
Yeah, no, I was have to talk about vegetation management program, so I was like, this is different than that, or we should do it, or rebundling the program.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Joe. Item 16, or page 16, excuse me. So the next category of variance grouping was operating labor increase of $338,000. There's two key components of that. Again, for any strategic organizational structure changes, you have rate of pay changes. And there's two components of that. There's going from budget to budget. One is the budget. There were rate of pay increases greater than what was anticipated in budget in 2020 and 2021. The budget assumed a 3% and a 3%, and it was closer to a 6 and a 2. And so that gap quantifies on the electric side of about $104,000 in impact on a B2B variance. And then the second component is in budget 22, there's an expectation of a pay change. And the current Bureau of Labor statistic figure for August was of 4.9, and that is specifically called out in the MOU, but it does have a cap of 5%. So right now the budget draft has 4.5, and it could be potentially 5. And if that happens by the time we're going final with budget, I'll need to adjust budget accordingly upwards. But current draft is at 4.5. June was, I have it published somewhere, but it's escaping me. It was slightly lower, but the transitory inflation that has been talked about in the economic discussions is seeming much more of a long-term transitory inflation, if that's a nice way of saying it. Let's see. So that's that item. Moving to page 17 for electric variants, strategic initiatives, vendor items. So think accounts payable, not payroll. And we've included $160,000 for professional services to continue momentum on the board's initiatives, Big Four initiatives. 30. I don't know if anyone knows what number is actually needed or required for budget 2022. So this, as mentioned in workshop 1, this is a conversation starter, so to speak. It's a placeholder. I don't know if we move forward and have momentum on all 4 and really go gung-ho, we may need more than this. If we're only working on 1 and there's only so much bandwidth and resources that we want to commit, it could be a smaller figure. This seemed like a reasonable amount to get started. We have a line item for grant application writing professional services as a new item. We do forecast that item would more than pay for itself in grant recovery, grant funds when it actually executes. So would love to have some resources dedicated to that. There's certainly discussions many over the months and when we talk organizationally that we could use a full-time person on staff, writing grants. And this is a baby step, is what I would call this. See how successful it is. Let's see. We have a good investment in laserfish and microimaging. We need to continue that, so there needs to be some assistance with that from vendors to help us move along that project. And implement here at the district. And cost increases and a new SDS, which I'm not sure what it stands for, but a new subscription service for safety programs in electric of $48,000 and $30,000 for an avian program development. I would assume a lot of electric utilities have an avian program, and I guess we don't think we do have one right now. We do not have one, and is this a regulatory item? Yes. Joe? Yeah, thank you. My sidekick over here. So this is a regulatory-driven matter. Excuse me?
Is that like a bird protection program? What is it exactly?
Good question. So that there are federal regulations, and I believe state also, that for utilities to meet for avian protection, for getting avian electrocutions on overhead distribution and transmission lines. So these regulations require utilities to have a program, and that's something that we've been remiss in. So we want to meet those regulations, and this would be this would not be an ongoing cost, but a one-time cost to have consultants help us develop that program, help us with standards so that we're making sure that we're building our facilities meeting those avian protection standards. So this is a one-time cost.
Okay, so we don't have any data on like birds we kill every year? Okay. Got it. I wonder how we know when we're successful, if we don't know what we're doing. But so that's what these standards do.
That could be part of the program, is that we start to track those avian deaths.
That's terrible. Okay. Interesting. Thank you. It's something I just hadn't thought of at all. Thanks.
I'd like to add a line item in here for $1,000 to have a rodent squirrel management program.
I was going to say, next year we're going to do the rodent program development.
Squirrels are the nemesis. That's one of the most fascinating things I've learned in my tenure here at the district.
How many 22 rifles do you need?
Right. And lastly, survey services. So we want to survey our customers, and that costs money, and to do it effectively and efficiently and mainly effectively. Page 18, on electric, this category, strategic initiatives, personnel items, 443,000. So these are ripple effect, or the effect of strategic personnel changes that have impact, electric's budget. The first item is 50-50 split for the Human Resources Director position. The second item is Electric Safety and Risk Coordinator, which is a new position. The electric vehicle mechanic, this cost is accumulated here on the summary pages for electric, but is charged out through transportation overhead. There's also a 50-50 split for a communications specialist position being added. And then there's a decrease for a transfer of a position, 1 FT electrician to the water, to be 100% dedicated to water operations, electrician needs. And then a decrease of a half FTE, so starting in July, the elimination of an electrician position starting in July of 2022, which will overflow into 1 FTE in 2023. And then lastly, or next item is compensation study contingency. So there is currently a compensation study underway, and so I don't know where that's going to end up, and I won't have that until probably too late for budget approval. So I want to have, I think it's appropriate to have some small amount of contingency to cover anything that might bubble up there. Forgotten the percentage, but on a percentage basis, it's 1.5% is from memory. And then general services, that's kind of a bit of a new term here, and I'll get into it a little bit when we get into personnel, adding 2 FTEs for facilities. Switching gears to water operation expenses. Variance explanation. So water B2B operating expenses are up 11.5% or 1.1 million. Those groupings, the first grouping is labor pay increase, very similar to what I discussed earlier on the electric side, for 338,000. Strategic plan initiatives, vendor expenses impact of 72, and then 935,000 is strategic organizational structure changes, and a decrease of 217 in all other. So this is the summary of those variances. I'm going to cover the next few pages, go over those components. Moving to page 20. So this is the same thing as what I covered on electric, just on the water side. The rate of pay changes in 2020 and 2021 greater than budget expectations, and then the impact of 4.5% increase on 2022. Those figures do include the overhead. Not all the overhead, because pay changes don't impact all overhead. Medical costs don't change because of rate of pay increase, but payroll taxes, workers' comp, and pension are the main ones that move in alignment with compensation level. Next page, strategic initiatives for water vendor items added were the ripple effect on water for the 3 items I covered previously that were not electric unique. So these items were split 50-50 between water and electric, and the water impact is presented here. Next page. Water personnel items. The first 4 I covered under electric. 50% of the Human Resources Director, Safety Coordinator, and Vehicle Mechanic. Again, because these are, and then Communications Specialist position. Again, I'll get into personnel and FTEs in another section soon here. And then a water maintenance program lead adds 1 FTE, specific 100% to water, obviously. and then the compensation contingency item. So those are your components for the water side. All right, page 23 is personnel. Almost halfway through, President Finn, I'm almost halfway through. Do you want to pause, take a break, or pleasure of the board?
How is everybody feeling? Do you want to just plow through, or would you like it? Okay. Vice President Laliotis is plowing.
Do as much as we can.
Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep it rolling.
Great. Okay, key assumptions, personnel, full-time equivalents. So I found the first of probably many typos, but page 23, the very first bullet needs to say 73 full-time equivalents, budget 2021. That says currently approved. That should say budget 2021. My apologies. Hopefully I didn't do that in the staff report.
I was going to be impressed if you had 0 typos in this giant document, so happens.
Well, we're not through it yet, but I'm happy to point them out. You know, nobody's perfect. A lot of information. Okay, so budget 2021, the year we're operating in, had a full-time equivalence of 73. 73.0 was the approval level. The activities of 2020 and 2021 through various organizational structure changes that have actually been implemented, they went to the board, they were approved, have added a net two positions to your operation here at the district. Okay? And then, so that puts us at 75 full-time equivalents, currently approved. And then for budget 2022, there's 5.5 recommended added, and that equates to 80.5 for budget 2022. And then in 2023, it's 80 full-time equivalents. These are to ensure the alignment with the mission values, the strategic plan, the goals, objectives, regulatory mandates, and these changes are we deem necessary to accomplish all of those things. So what are those 5.5 things? You saw indicators in my previous discussions, rolling forward to the operating expense changes. So the 5 are a communications analyst tech position, a safety risk coordinator position, in water, 2 part-time seasonal helpers. So those would be non-benefited, but they do equate to a full-time equivalent if you hire 2 of them for the summer months. 1 water ops, water maintenance program lead position. The electrician shift from electric on the electric side over to water is not an increase in FTEs, it's a shift, just for clarification. And then, I put that at the bottom. Yes. And then a facilities manager and a facilities lead. So that was in that general services line item that a few pages ago that I discussed. And then elimination of 1 half electrician position starting in July. So that's a 1.0 impact on 2023.
Mike, in previous slides, you had a new additional vehicle mechanic, and I'm not seeing that on this list.
Right, so thank you, Director Laliotis. So that's in the 2.0 already approved.
Oh, okay.
So I'm rolling forward, I'm quantifying the changes for budget the adds for budget 2022.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep. Questions, clarifications, further discussions? Brian, you want to add anything on any of these line items?
Yeah, I think it's important to note that some of the, a large part of the additional FTEs in slide page number 24 are driven in part by new regulatory burdens for both water and electric utility operations. For example, the water maintenance program lead would be an individual that is really driving our compliance with the new water law performance standards, meter testing requirements, leak detection, monitoring. The regulatory environment that's coming out here very soon will include a pretty significant burden on water utilities across the state of California in just managing and reporting these programs. And so we have historically assigned those duties to engineering staff or operational leads that really should be focused on other items. Our extensive and exhaustive capital improvement plan that I know Mr. Kaufman is going to be tasked with for the next many years. And some of the other operational maintenance and replacement programs that we need to direct water staff to focus on those over the years. Other examples is safety and risk coordinator. There's a lot of compliance that, we need to make sure this district is keeping on tabs of. And historically, that burden has been split between HR positions or management positions. And so this really frees up those positions to work on key initiatives in our strategic plan, staff development, and all of those things. And so the risk manager really puts the district in a better position to ensure that we're in compliance with some of the regulatory compliance measures that are coming out. And these aren't ifs, they're already underway. We just haven't have the formal ruling on them yet. And then the example, the two part-time seasonal helpers, this is an approach the district had many years ago, and it serves two purposes. One is we bring in temporary summer help, and it brings in kind of the recruitment process for the next generation of service techs, linemen, water service techs, staff in the administrative offices, and then it also, we have that issue where we're super productive out in the field in the summer, but in the winter, our outdoor workload